There comes a moment in every man's life when he looks into the mirror and feels a haunting truth. He doesn't recognize the man staring back. Not because he's changed, but because he hasn't. The same fears, the same excuses, the same loop of half-lived days bleeding quietly into half-hearted years. Nothing truly shifts inside, yet something deep within him knows he can't stay here any longer. It's not a loud kind of pain. It's silent. It's the kind that eats away at you when the world goes still. When you lie awake at 2 a.m. and feel the weight of your own potential turning into dust. That's when you realize something has to break, and it has to be you. Destruction isn't madness, it's medicine. Sometimes clarity demands chaos, and when life whispers that you've outgrown your current self, ignoring that whisper becomes a slow kind of death. The version of you that hides behind comfort, that negotiates with fear and sells your purpose for approval, that version must die. Not fixed, not upgraded, erased, burned to ash. Because Stoicism isn't about polishing the surface. It's about becoming fire, unrecognizable to the man you used to be. Real transformation isn't pretty. It's not about lighting candles or quoting philosophy. It's about standing naked before your own weakness and walking through it without flinching. That's where the true essence of the Stoic lies. Quiet, ruthless, reborn. And when you start that process, the world will not applaud you. They'll call it arrogance. They'll call it coldness. They'll say you've changed. And you have. You've stopped existing for them. You've started existing for you. Every old version of you is just a shadow. And shadows survive only when you stay still. But once you move, once you evolve, the shadow no longer fits. That's not loss. That's growth. That's rebirth. It hurts, and it's supposed to. Growth is violent. Transformation is brutal. You'll lose your false peace before you find your real one. But what's left when you strip away the lies? That's power. That's truth. Here, at Stoic Sage Academy, we don't talk about comfort. We talk about creation, the kind born from endurance, silence, and self-mastery. You don't just survive your pain, you forge yourself through it. You become both the sculptor and the stone, subtracting everything false until only the unbreakable remains. So if you're listening right now, and there's a quiet voice inside you whispering that your old self is done, listen. That's not fear. That's your rebirth calling. Don't numb it. Don't bury it. Answer it. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about finally proving yourself right. About choosing evolution over ego, silence over validation, fire over comfort. The world may not understand your transformation, but that's the point. You're not here to be understood. You're here to become something the old world can no longer define, and your rebirth begins. Now, burn the bridges to your past. Not some of them. All of them. There's a reason ancient warriors set fire to their ships after reaching enemy shores. It wasn't about theatrics or desperation. It was about finality. It was a declaration to themselves. There is no way back. Only forward. Only through. That's not just a military strategy. It's a philosophy for life. When it comes to your past, that's the level of conviction you need. Not maybe, not when I'm ready, but a clean, irreversible decision. The kind that leaves no escape route for your weaker self. Because the truth is, as long as you keep a door open to who you used to be, your mind will walk through it the moment life gets hard. You can't evolve while keeping the past as your safety net. You can't reach higher ground while holding on to the handrails of comfort. Too many people say they want change, but they still text ghosts. They scroll through old photos. They replay memories like reruns of a show they claim to be done watching. They call it nostalgia, but it's really hesitation. Fear disguised as sentiment. Real transformation doesn't negotiate. It demands a clean cut. It's ruthless, not cruel, precise, not emotional. It requires you to burn every bridge that leads back to the version of you that tolerated less than you deserved, that begged for validation, that accepted survival when you were built for greatness. Stoicism teaches us that strength isn't about holding on. It's about letting go completely without ceremony. Because nostalgia is the enemy of evolution. Every time you revisit the past for comfort, you resurrect the very chains you once fought to break. The past isn't harmless. It's gravitational. Every thought you replay, every pattern you indulge, every just one last time, pulls you back into orbit around who you were. And before you know it, you're living yesterday again, wearing old emotions that no longer fit. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That includes the event of your own past. You decide what power it holds. You can carry it like a chain or wear it like armor that no longer serves you. But either way, you're the one keeping it on. Burning the bridge doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means refusing to let it govern what happens next. It means catching yourself when you say, "This is just who I am," and replacing it with, "This is who I'm choosing to become." Because every time you justify your old patterns, you reinforce the identity you're trying to outgrow. Your transformation must become non-negotiable. That means blocking numbers that pull you backward. Walking away from people who've known you for years, but never truly seen you. Deleting the messages, the playlists, the photos that keep reopening the same wounds. Erasing not for revenge, but for renewal. Because if even one thread connects you to the person you used to be, pressure will pull you back the moment it rises. And it will rise. Change is never linear. It's collapse, chaos, and construction all happening at once. And when that storm hits, your mind will whisper, "Go back." Just for a moment. That's when the bridges must already be gone. No path to return, only the road forward. People will talk. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've become distant, cold, unrecognizable. Let them. They're not talking to the new you. They're grieving the version they could control. Their loss is your liberation. It's not your responsibility to bring everyone into your future. Some were only meant to know fragments of your past. That was their chapter, not your story. Your story continues the moment you stop rewriting old pages and start living in the blank ones ahead. And that's where true freedom begins, when the past no longer has access to you, not because it vanished, but because you outgrew its reach. Then your standards rise like walls of steel, your habits sharpen like weapons, your boundaries become sacred ground. That older version of you, the one who apologized for existing, who shrank to fit small rooms, dies quietly. And in its place, something unstoppable emerges. A man who walks forward not haunted by what he's lost, but alive with awe for what he's building. So ask yourself with brutal honesty, what bridges are you still afraid to burn? What voices from your old identity still echo in your new life? And will you finally silence them? Not with anger, but with clarity, with certainty, with fire? Because the same flames that destroy your past will forge your future. The power of walking alone. There comes a moment when you realize solitude isn't emptiness. It's elevation. Not isolation, but ignition. The kind of power that doesn't shout or demand attention, but hums quietly beneath the surface. Growing stronger each day, you walk your own path. Most people run from solitude because they've never truly met themselves. They fill their days with chatter, with scrolling, with validation, terrified of the stillness that reveals their real reflection. But that silence you fear, that's where your transformation begins. When you walk alone, you stop being pulled by the gravitational force of the crowd. You stop outsourcing your opinions, your choices, your direction. You stop dressing for their approval and start building a life that fits your soul. And in a world addicted to attention, that's rebellion. Because walking alone means living by your own code. A private creed that no one else has to understand, but one you refuse to betray. It means being willing to lose people, comfort, and familiarity to find the version of yourself that can stand without applause. We've been conditioned to believe that being surrounded means being successful. But look closer. Most crowds gather around convenience, not conviction. The masses celebrate comfort because it justifies their own stagnation. So when you begin to rise, when your thoughts sharpen, your energy refines, don't be surprised when faces fade. They're not leaving because you failed them. They're leaving because your evolution exposes their resistance to their own. That's not tragedy, that's proof. Each day you walk alone, you strengthen the most sacred truth of Stoicism. No one is coming to save you. No one owes you understanding, validation, or rescue. Epictetus said we must desire events to unfold as they do, not as we wish. To use what happens as training, not torment. That's what walking alone really is. Training for the mind. The understanding that solitude is not punishment, but preparation. When you walk by yourself, your steps become deliberate. You start saying no more often. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. You begin to guard your time like oxygen, because you finally realize it's the most precious currency you own. You stop over-explaining your silence. You stop asking for permission to grow. You start trusting the quiet compass inside you more than the noise outside. And that shift, that reclamation of your own authority, that sovereignty. But make no mistake, this path will test you. There will be nights when silence feels like a storm, when the absence of validation feels like rejection. You'll question your worth. You'll crave connection. And this is where most people turn back, chasing noise just to escape the echo of their own doubt. But if you stay, if you endure the discomfort of your own company, something changes. You begin to see that loneliness was never your enemy. Dependence was. In solitude, the illusions fall away. You face your habits, your weaknesses, your ego, raw, without distraction. That confrontation is painful, but it's also sacred, because that's where discipline is born. There's no one left to blame, no one to compare yourself to, just you, naked before your own truth. And in that honesty, you forge a self that doesn't flinch. A self that no longer fears being left behind because it finally understands. Solitude isn't punishment. It's purification. Once you master it, you become magnetic. You stop chasing and you start attracting, but not from need, but from wholeness. And the irony is, the right people begin to appear only after you no longer need them to. Walking alone means you've already chosen yourself, fully, fearlessly. It means you no longer seek to be understood by everyone because you finally understand yourself. So if you find yourself alone right now, good. That means you've stopped following. That means the transformation has already begun. The path is quiet, but your future is listening. Because solitude isn't the absence of connection. It's the birthplace of your most important one. The connection with who you truly are. Breaking free from weakness and comfort. Comfort is a slow poison. Pleasant to taste, deadly to growth. It feels like safety. It feels like peace. But in reality, it's sedation. The Stoics understood this long before modern philosophy ever caught up. They knew that a man who grows too comfortable stops being capable. Ease weakens what endurance once built. Comfort doesn't announce its arrival. It creeps in quietly. It disguises itself as rest, as reward, as I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes a habit. And soon, that softness becomes your identity. You don't stop moving because you can't. You stop because you've forgotten the cost of stillness. Realize this, every moment that shaped you, that sharpened your character, that forged your resilience, came through friction, not ease. Strength is born where comfort dies. Seneca once wrote that we must undergo a hard winter training, because without struggle, the soul grows soft. Without discipline, even courage begins to decay. The mind becomes fragile when it's never tested. The heart becomes dependent when it's never denied. So if you want to evolve, you must seek resistance. Not because pain is noble, but because it's honest. Pain is feedback. It shows you where you're weak, where you're untrained, where you've stopped demanding more from yourself, and that awareness, that's gold. Because once you see where you're still soft, you can no longer pretend you're hard. Breaking free from weakness starts with ruthless honesty. Ask yourself, where have I gotten lazy? Where am I comfortable hiding? What parts of my life have I allowed ease to sabotage under the disguise of self-care? And then, without announcement, without waiting for inspiration, you move. You act. You do the thing that terrifies you. You make the call, you lift the weight, you face the confrontation, you take the step. Not because you feel ready, but because readiness is earned through action, not before it. Weakness isn't the absence of strength. It's the absence of willingness. And willingness is built like muscle, rep by rep, decision by decision. Every time you choose effort over ease, you're teaching your mind a new story. I act despite how I feel. That repetition, quiet, consistent, uncelebrated, is what turns discipline into identity. Comfort will beg you to stay the same. Weakness will whisper that you've done enough. But a man who understands Stoicism knows evolution requires friction. Growth is never convenient. It's meant to hurt. It's meant to expose you. Because the cost of growth is discomfort. But the cost of comfort is your life. Don't become the man who looks back 1 year from now and realizes he's still standing in the same spot. Be the one who looks back and can't recognize the old self because he burned what was soft and rebuilt what was solid. So ask yourself, what part of your life have you let comfort govern? And what would happen if, just for the next 7 days, you did the opposite of what felt easy? Because transformation begins not in comfort, but in confrontation. And every time you choose the hard path, you become more aligned with the person you were meant to be. Not a man of ease, but a man of endurance. Erasing the old mindset and reprogramming the mind. Your life is not just the sum of your choices. It's the echo of your conditioning. It's the invisible script written by the voices that raised you, the fears that molded you, and the limits that quietly became law in your mind. Every reaction, every hesitation, every excuse you whisper to yourself, they all trace back to that unseen code. And here's the uncomfortable truth most never face. If you don't take control of the programming that shaped you, you'll spend your life performing in a play you never auditioned for, directed by people who don't even remember writing the script. Conditioning hides in plain sight. It's in the tone of your inner dialogue when you fall short. It's in the way you shrink yourself when others talk over you. It's in the quiet resignation that says, "This is just who I am." No, that's who you were taught to be. These patterns were learned, which means they can be unlearned. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it language. Epictetus reminded us, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Those judgments, the silent filters through which we see reality, are born from old programming. Most people never question them, and so they live as prisoners inside beliefs that were never theirs to begin with. If you truly wish to rebuild yourself, you can't just modify your routines. You must dismantle the foundation beneath them. You must challenge the beliefs that taught you to settle, to fear, to doubt. Because this isn't self-improvement, it's internal warfare. Every time you attempt to think differently, the old program will rise in defense. It will whisper, "Stay small, stay safe, don't change." It will disguise comfort as wisdom and fear as reason. And unless you meet those whispers with conscious rebellion, they will quietly poison your potential. Reprogramming your mind begins with ruthless awareness. You have to catch the thought in the act. When you hear yourself say, "I can't do that," stop. Ask, "Why not? Who told me that? When did I start believing it? Was it a careless word from someone you looked up to? A failure you never healed from? A story society repeated until it became your identity?" Interrogate every belief until it confesses its origin. Because once you trace a thought back to its source, it loses its authority over you. But awareness alone isn't enough. The human mind rejects emptiness. If you remove a belief and don't replace it with something stronger, the old one will return like a ghost looking for a home. So, you build a new narrative, a deliberate identity forged by choice, not conditioning. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," and start saying, "I am disciplined." You stop hoping for confidence and start acting with it. Every word, every posture, every routine becomes a statement of your new programming. And over time, repetition becomes identity. You speak differently. You move differently. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop tolerating mediocrity, not because someone told you to, but because the old mindset no longer fits. It feels foreign, like wearing someone else's skin. The transition won't be perfect. You'll relapse. You'll catch the old voice trying to reclaim its throne. That's fine. That's part of the evolution. The difference is now you notice it. You recognize the lie before it becomes truth again. You pause, breathe, and say, "No, that's not me anymore." And even when you fall, you don't stay down, because your new identity pulls you forward like gravity. It's conscious. It's chosen. It's yours. You've been told that personality is permanent, that identity is static. But Stoicism rejects that illusion. You are not fixed. You are fluid. You are reasoned flesh, capable of reshaping itself with every thought and judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Every thought, every belief, every mental pattern, they stain the soul with their hue. So what color are you painting your life with? Are your thoughts bright with clarity or darkened by old shadows? Because until you confront the roots of your conditioning, you'll keep watering the weeds of your old life and wonder why the garden of your potential never blooms. Rebuilding your life isn't an act of willpower alone. It's an act of conscious re-engineering, rewriting the very software that runs your existence. And the process begins the moment you stop existing on autopilot and start designing a mind worthy of the life you want to live. Cutting off negative influences forever. Look closely at your life. Not everyone who claps for you wants to see you win. Some only cheer when you're predictable, when your light feels safe to stand next to, when your growth doesn't remind them of their own stagnation. They'll smile to your face while quietly hoping you never outgrow the version of yourself that made them comfortable. That's the brutal truth most avoid. You are always being shaped by your surroundings. The only question is, who's holding the chisel? Cutting off negative influences isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's not punishment. It's protection. You're not being cold. You're being conscious. Because the environment that surrounds you becomes the energy that sustains you. You can have the sharpest vision, the strongest work ethic, and the clearest purpose. But if you're surrounded by cynics, doubters, or emotional leeches, their gravity will pull you backward. You'll waste your strength explaining your evolution instead of living it. And that constant defense, it drains the very power you need to build the life you say you want. The Stoics knew this long before the world started. Preaching energy and boundaries, they understood that the mind must be trained like a warrior. Disciplined, focused, and guarded. You can't seek peace while walking through noise. You can't cultivate wisdom while entertaining chaos. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make you better." That isn't a polite suggestion. It's a survival law. Because people don't just share words. They plant seeds. Some sow resilience. Others sow rot. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day realizing your inner garden has been growing weeds that weren't even yours to begin with. The most dangerous influence isn't always the loud critic. Sometimes it's the soft, smiling friend who normalizes your weakness. The one who excuses your laziness, laughs when you set boundaries, or mocks your ambition. They'll say things like, "Don't take life so seriously," or "You've changed." But what they really mean is, "You're becoming someone I can no longer control." Cutting people off doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. Stoicism doesn't preach theatrics. It preaches action. You don't need closure. You don't need validation. You simply decide, my peace is not up for negotiation. My time is not a public resource. My focus is sacred. And once that decision is made, you enforce it with silence. This principle extends beyond people. Your influences exist in pixels, sounds, and screens. They live in the videos you binge when you're avoiding discomfort, in the accounts that glorify distraction, in the conversations that masquerade as humor but drip with pessimism. Every voice you allow into your mind becomes part of your inner dialogue. So ask yourself, are you feeding your growth or feeding your decay? Editing your circle isn't arrogance. It's architecture. You're designing the mental environment where your future self will live. Look at each connection and ask, does this person expand me or exhaust me? Do they challenge my excuses or enable them? Because proximity is powerful. Sit beside warriors and you'll learn discipline. Sit beside cowards and you'll learn fear. And when you start walking away from what weakens you, guilt will come. It always does. You'll question yourself. Am I being selfish? Am I being too harsh? No, you're being real. That discomfort is your old programming dying. The version of you that needed approval gasping for air. You've been conditioned to believe that peace requires permission. It doesn't. Growth requires solitude. The Stoics lived by nature's rhythm, and nature doesn't cling. The tree doesn't apologize for shedding dead leaves. The snake doesn't mourn its old skin. What's outdated falls away, because survival demands it. And so must you. You're not abandoning people. You're outgrowing frequencies. You're no longer aligning with chaos, gossip, and aimlessness. You're aligning with purpose, stillness, and strength. Some will call you distant, others will call you arrogant. Let them. They're not talking to the person you are. They're grieving the version you left behind. So step back and look at your ecosystem, your circle, your inputs, your habits. Ask yourself with ruthless honesty, who would I become if I disconnected from everything that drains me? What kind of man or woman would I be if I guarded my energy as if my destiny depended on it? Because it does. Your future is built in silence, protected by boundaries, powered by clarity, and purified by distance. Building an unbreakable routine for growth. Growth doesn't arrive in flashes of inspiration. It doesn't strike like lightning. It's built, piece by piece, hour by hour, through the silent repetition of deliberate action. It's forged in the ordinary, in the still, structured hours that no one else sees. Because chaos in your days creates chaos in your mind. And a mind ruled by chaos can never produce anything extraordinary. If your routine is fragile, your focus will be too. If your structure depends on mood, your progress will depend on luck. That's why the Stoic pursues order, not as a constraint, but as liberation. Because discipline is the only true freedom. An unbreakable routine isn't about rigidity, it's about alignment. It's the daily declaration that your goals are not negotiable. It's how you make your values visible. You don't wait for the perfect morning, the perfect mood, or the perfect motivation. You create momentum through repetition. Motivation is a spark. Routine is the fire. And when the world goes dark, it's the fire that keeps burning. The Stoics understood this profoundly. Marcus Aurelius began each day with reflection, not distraction. He reminded himself that the world would test him, that he would meet the ungrateful, the arrogant, the selfish, and yet he would not be moved. That was not luck. That was discipline. That was a man rehearsing virtue before the battle of the day began. That is the essence of an unbreakable routine. To prepare your mind before the world provokes it. To build internal order before the external chaos begins. So ask yourself honestly, what story does your routine tell about you? Not your words, not your ambitions, not your Instagram goals and your habits. If someone shadowed you from dawn to dusk, would they see a person constructing greatness or one endlessly preparing for it? Because in the end, your day reveals your destiny. A strong routine isn't about filling every second with noise. It's about making time sacred. Time to train the body, because strength breeds clarity. Time to still the mind, because silence sharpens perception. Time to work deeply, because distraction dilutes potential. And it starts with small, uncompromising rules. You don't open your phone before you open your mind. You don't feed your brain with noise before you've fed it with stillness. You don't let the world dictate your pace before you've established your purpose. This isn't about perfection or extremes. It's about rhythm. The Stoic doesn't chase intensity. He masters consistency. He knows that excellence is not born in explosions, but in echoes. The same deliberate choices, repeated without applause, until they become identity. Too many people build routines for their ideal days, not their real ones. They plan for the version of themselves that's rested, inspired, and ready. But growth is built for the days when you're not. When you're tired, uninspired, and tempted to quit. That's when discipline either cracks or crystallizes. The Stoic doesn't ask, "How do I feel?" He asks, "What needs to be done?" And then he does it, without noise, without negotiation. Because emotion is a visitor. Discipline is a home. When your routine is rooted in clarity, interruptions lose their power. Life will test you. Emergencies, noise, distractions, people who drain your focus. But if your structure is built on intention, not impulse, you'll bend without breaking. You'll adapt, but you won't drift. You'll move with life, not be moved by it. That's what it means to build an unbreakable routine, a system that survives bad days, resists temptation, and anchors your identity when nothing else feels steady. Audit your hours. Ask yourself, where is my time going and what is it building? Design your days like a craftsman designs his tools, with precision, purpose, and pride. Eliminate the noise, guard your focus, and build a rhythm so strong that skipping it feels like betrayal. Because greatness doesn't emerge from grand gestures, it's carved from repetition. The Stoic knows that every day is practice, and every action is a vote for the man he's becoming. When your habits align with your highest values, your life becomes inevitable. And that's when discipline turns into destiny. Mastering emotional control and self-discipline. Most people live as prisoners of their emotions. They let every passing feeling pull the strings of their behavior. They speak before thinking, react before reflecting, and confuse impulse with authenticity. They mistake volatility for passion and weakness for honesty. But the truth is this: when emotion rules you, it ruins you. One outburst, one distraction, one lazy decision, and weeks, sometimes months of progress can vanish in an instant. The Stoics understood this danger centuries ago. To them, emotional control wasn't a suggestion, it was armor. A shield for the mind, a mark of strength that separated the grounded from the chaotic, the masters from the masses. In a world obsessed with expression and allergic to restraint, control has become rebellion. Speak your truth. Follow your feelings. Don't bottle it up. That's the modern mantra. But what they forget is this: unguarded emotions don't liberate you. They enslave you. They whisper lies. They push you to burn bridges, to abandon discipline, to surrender to fleeting moods that sabotage the life you're trying to build. Emotional control isn't suppression, it's mastery. It's the ability to feel deeply, yet act wisely. To sense the storm inside and still choose direction over destruction. It's not coldness, it's clarity. The pause before the reaction, the breath before the response. The awareness that says, I am not my emotion, I am the witness of it. That single moment of space is where your power lives. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. He woke up to chaos, to betrayal, to the weight of an empire. Yet his journals reveal a man calm enough to examine his feelings before expressing them. He observed his anger, studied his frustration, and dissected his impulses. He didn't obey emotion. He educated it. That's what Stoic strength really is: emotional literacy. The ability to understand your own mind so intimately that nothing within it can surprise or control you. And from that awareness, discipline is born. Self-discipline is not punishment, it's protection. It's the vow that your emotions will never sabotage your purpose, that you won't let fatigue dictate your consistency. That offense won't dictate your reactions. That pleasure won't dictate your direction. Discipline means doing what's right, especially when it's uncomfortable. It's keeping promises no one else will know you broke. It's working without applause, enduring without complaint, persisting without a witness. Because real control isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It's not about dominance over others, it's dominance over self. No one will see the invisible battles you win, the anger swallowed instead of spoken, the temptation resisted, the laziness overcome. There are no trophies for restraint, but over time you'll feel the shift. A calm mind where chaos used to live, a sharp focus where distraction used to thrive. You'll stop chasing validation because you'll realize the only approval that matters is from the man you're becoming. And here's the paradox. The more you master your emotions, the more emotional freedom you gain. You stop fearing pain because you've learned to face it. You stop avoiding discomfort because you understand its value. You stop running from failure because it no longer defines you. Control doesn't cage you. It frees you from the need to be controlled by anything else. Think about the damage caused by emotional weakness. How many relationships have been burned by words spoken in anger? How many dreams delayed by a single, I don't feel like it morning? How many destinies derailed by the inability to endure a temporary mood? These are not small mistakes. They are silent assassins of greatness. Every time you surrender to impulse, you vote against your higher self. The Stoic's path is not to feel less, it's to respond better. To train the mind daily, to sit with discomfort long enough to understand its message. To use journaling, reflection, physical training, and solitude as tools for self-command. These aren't rituals of perfection. They're weapons of preparation. They give you distance between what happens and how you choose to react. So understand this: the strongest man is not the one who never feels emotion, but the one who never lets emotion dictate his course. He can feel the fire and still hold the line. He can stand in the storm and still choose the direction of his steps. Ask yourself honestly, who's steering your life right now? Your principles or your passions? Your reason or your reactions? Your vision or your moods? Because the man who conquers himself has no real enemies left. His emotions may visit him, but they do not rule him. His impulses may whisper, but they do not command. He is no longer at the mercy of what he feels. He is guided by what he values. And that is the beginning of true power. Reinventing your identity from the ground up. There comes a point when self-improvement isn't enough. When reading more books, stacking new habits, and optimizing your routine no longer moves the needle. Because what you're facing isn't a surface problem, it's an identity problem. You've updated the schedule, changed the wardrobe, even cleaned up the diet. Yet deep inside, the operating system hasn't changed. You're still living through an outdated story of who you think you are. And no matter how much effort you put in, that old identity will keep dragging you back to the same familiar patterns, the ones you swore you'd outgrown. The truth is simple but brutal. You cannot create a new life while clinging to an old self-image. You can't embody discipline while secretly believing you're lazy. You can't radiate confidence while carrying a narrative of unworthiness. You can't lead with strength while identifying as the man who's still trying to figure it out. Your habits follow your identity. Change who you believe you are and everything else starts to align. Reinvention isn't about upgrading. It's about rebuilding. The Stoics never spoke about becoming someone else. They spoke about returning to yourself, to the uncorrupted core buried under fear, ego, guilt, and social noise. Marcus Aurelius never said, act brave. He said, be one. He didn't talk about pretending. He talked about embodying. Because becoming your true self isn't performance, it's remembrance. This is where the real work begins. Stripping away everything that isn't you. Every label, every excuse, every limitation you've accepted as identity. I'm not a morning person. I've always been bad with people. I'm just inconsistent. These aren't traits. They're beliefs you've repeated so many times that they've hardened into truth. The Stoic asks, who told you that? Where did you learn to limit yourself? And more importantly, what would remain if you stopped believing those stories? Reinvention demands courage because it requires self-confrontation. You'll have to dismantle parts of yourself that once kept you safe. The overthinking, the self-doubt, the procrastination disguised as preparation. Those habits were defense mechanisms. They protected you when you were weaker, but now they imprison you. To evolve, you must kill off the versions of you that no longer serve your mission. That's not self-hate. That's self-honesty. True reinvention is not about becoming new. It's about remembering what you were before the world convinced you to shrink. Beneath the noise, you already know who you are. The disciplined, calm, powerful man exists. He's just been buried under years of compromise. So stop working on yourself like a project. Start reclaiming yourself like a truth. Identity is built through evidence. You don't wait until you feel like the man you want to become. You start acting like him. If your future self is focused, wake up with focus. If he's composed, speak with restraint. If he's powerful, move with intention, even when it feels unnatural. Because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity builds identity. The act comes before the belief. But here's the key. Stop negotiating with your old self. Stop consulting your past for advice about your future. The past is not a prophecy, it's a reference. You owe your former self gratitude for getting you here, but you don't owe him loyalty. Let him rest. Every time you identify with your wounds, your failures, your history, you resurrect a version of yourself that should have stayed buried. Solitude becomes essential in this process. Not isolation, but solitude. The sacred silence where you can hear your real thoughts again. Because the people around you often remember the old you, the one who joked too much, who needed validation, who doubted his own strength. They see the memory, not the metamorphosis. And if you're not careful, you'll start acting like that memory just to stay understood. So disappear for a while. Reinvent in quiet. Let your transformation be private and your actions be proof. You don't have to announce your rebirth. You have to embody it. When your energy changes, your walk will change. When your walk changes, your world will follow. Reinvention requires ritual. Morning routines, deep reflection, training, journaling, stillness. These aren't trends. They're chisels. You're carving away what's false to reveal what's real. Each repetition sharpens the edges of your true identity. Each act of discipline confirms the new standard you've chosen. And when that new core begins to reveal itself, protect it. Feed it with consistency, with purpose, with solitude. Build your life around it. Because this is no longer about who you were. It's about who you're deciding to become. So ask yourself honestly, are you still constructing your future from the ruins of your past? Or are you ready to burn the blueprint and rebuild from principle, purpose, and truth? Because identity isn't inherited. It's forged in silence, in struggle, in repetition. And the fire you walk through now will not destroy you. It will define you. The art of self-reliance. There's a rare kind of peace that arrives the moment you stop expecting rescue. The moment you realize no one is coming to save you. Not your mentor, not your partner, not your friends, not even the ones who mean well. They can stand beside you, they can encourage you, they can remind you of who you are when you forget, but they cannot walk your path for you. The weight of your life was meant for your shoulders. That is not punishment. That is purpose. This is the essence of self-reliance, not arrogance, not isolation, but the quiet, immovable strength that comes from knowing your foundation must be built by your own hands. Because if someone else builds it for you, it will crumble the moment they leave. Most people will resist that truth. They want saving. They want shortcuts. They want someone else to see them so deeply that they never have to face themselves. But the Stoic knows that's not growth. That's dependency disguised as comfort. And comfort is the enemy of evolution. Growth demands responsibility. Complete, unfiltered, radical responsibility. For your thoughts, for your emotions, for every decision you've made that brought you here. Because the instant you hand that power to someone else, by blaming, by complaining, by waiting, you've already surrendered your strength. Epictetus said it clearly. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can always control how we respond. That single idea is the root of self-reliance. It means your peace is your job. Your progress is your duty. Your response is your weapon. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You need clarity, discipline, and the courage to depend on no one but yourself. Not because you distrust others, but because you trust yourself. But let's make one thing clear. Self-reliance isn't about pushing people away. It's about no longer needing them to confirm your worth. It's not about being hard. It's about being whole. It's knowing that applause or silence, company or solitude, victory or defeat, none of it defines you. You define you. True self-reliance begins when you can sit in silence and still feel complete. Not because you've arrived, but because you're showing up. Every single day, with or without witnesses, with or without validation. That doesn't come naturally. We're trained to depend on others for our sense of meaning. We look to relationships, careers, achievements to tell us we matter. And when those things fade, when love ends, when jobs change, when the noise quiets, most people collapse. Not because they're weak, but because they never learn to stand on their own ground. That's why self-reliance is sacred. It's unshakable. It's built not on circumstances, but on inner architecture, a foundation of personal truth that no storm can move. When you are self-reliant, you stop chasing lucky breaks. You stop praying for easier days. You simply wake up, make a plan, and execute. With or without praise, with or without recognition, with or without results. Because consistency is your covenant. Every repetition of effort compounds, quietly, invisibly, faithfully. And over time, that consistency hardens into confidence. That confidence becomes certainty. And that certainty becomes peace. When you are truly self-reliant, you become untouchable. You can't be manipulated because you no longer need anything from anyone. You don't shrink to fit in. You don't chase approval. You don't fear rejection because your self-worth isn't borrowed. It's owned outright. And no one can repossess what you've built through solitude and struggle. But here's the part most people miss. Self-reliance isn't a personality trait. It's a practice. It's a skill forged in repetition, built one small promise at a time. When you do what you said you'd do, even when no one's watching. When you keep working and even when you're tired. When you choose discipline over distraction, again and again and again. Those small private victories are how you earn your own trust. And once you trust yourself, you stop hoping and start knowing. You stop saying, I wish I could, and start saying, I will figure it out. That shift from dependence to decision is the birth of real power. Because now your strength is internal. It's not reactive. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It moves silently, like a mountain that refuses to move for storms. You won't need to broadcast it. People will feel it. They'll sense the gravity in your presence. They'll respect it, even if they can't explain it. So if you feel alone right now, good. That's not loneliness. That's initiation. It means you've stopped leaning on what's weak. It means the old supports have fallen away and now you're standing where true strength is born. Don't retreat. Don't beg to be rescued. Stand still. Breathe. Build. Brick by brick. Routine by routine. Decision by decision. Build from within. Because when you master the art of self-reliance, you stop needing people to carry you. You become someone they can lean on, not because you must, but because you can. Turning pain into power. Pain. It's the one visitor no human can escape. It comes uninvited, unapologetic, and often when you least expect it. It doesn't knock. It breaks the door down. But here's the truth the Stoics understood better than anyone. It's not the pain that defines you. It's the way you meet it. The difference between the broken and the unbreakable is never how much they suffer. It's what they build from their suffering. Most people spend their lives running from pain. They drown it in noise, in distractions, in validation. They scroll, drink, laugh, and pretend, anything but feel. But the Stoic doesn't run. He doesn't hide. He stands still in the storm and asks one question that changes everything. What are you here to teach me? Because pain, when you stop fearing it, becomes a messenger, not a punishment. It's not there to destroy you, but to expose where you're still fragile, still clinging, still unfinished. It points out the exact fracture lines in your character that need reforging. Pain is not your enemy. It's your instructor. Society has conditioned us to treat pain like failure. We cover it up, medicate it, escape it. But the Stoics flipped that illusion upside down. They saw pain not as an obstacle, but as a forge. Marcus Aurelius didn't just endure hardship. He used it. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just a comforting quote. It's a tactical mindset. The obstacle isn't blocking your path. It is your path. The very thing you think is stopping your progress is the raw material from which your strength will be sculpted. Transformation doesn't begin when the pain ends. It begins when you stop pretending it's not there. When you look yourself in the mirror and say, yes, this hurts. Yes, I'm bleeding. But I will not let this break me. I will let it rebuild me. That's the shift. That's where power is born. Because the truth is, most people carry pain like a weight, letting it drag them through life, harden their hearts, and shrink their capacity to love and trust. But the Stoic carries it differently. He wears his pain like armor, not to hide behind it, but to remember that he's been tempered by fire and lived to tell the story. Every scar, every heartbreak, every betrayal becomes a badge, not of what was lost, but of what was learned. Pain refines your focus. It clarifies what truly matters. It teaches you what to let go of and what's worth fighting for. Think about it. The strongest, most grounded people you know didn't emerge from comfort. They were forged in collapse, disappointment, and loss. They've buried dreams, endured silence, faced rejection, but they didn't stay there. They took the ashes of what was and built something unshakable: wisdom, patience, resilience. They turned heartbreak into hunger, betrayal into boundaries, loneliness into clarity. They didn't numb the pain. They transmuted it. And that's what you must learn to do. Stop asking, why me? Start asking, what now? Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Because suffering is pain without purpose. If you're going to hurt, make it count. Extract meaning. Build from it. Most people retreat before pain has finished its work. They run back to comfort, to distraction, to denial. But the Stoic stays. He endures, not because he enjoys the suffering, but because he understands its necessity. Every moment of discomfort is chiseling away weakness, ego, illusion. Pain also clarifies loyalty. When the light fades, masks fall off, you discover who truly walks with you and who only loved your sunshine. You see which habits crumble, which beliefs hold, and which values are non-negotiable. Pain strips away the unnecessary, leaving only the essential, and though that process feels like death, it's actually rebirth. You lose illusions and gain truth. You lose attachments and gain strength. You stop being ruled by emotion and start being guided by principle. Once you've suffered deeply and risen stronger, something changes in you. You become calm, not because life got easier, but because you stopped expecting it to. You don't panic at obstacles. You don't chase approval. You don't need validation. You've met pain and survived it. Everything else is just noise. So if you're hurting right now, understand this. The pain you feel is the fire that's meant to forge you. Don't run from it. Don't silence it. Don't dilute it with distractions. Sit with it. Listen. Learn. Because pain, when faced with awareness, becomes wisdom. And wisdom, when acted upon, becomes power. The kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't seek attention, and doesn't need recognition. It's the kind that moves through life unshaken, disciplined, and free. The Stoics didn't escape pain. They used it. And when you do the same, you stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it for what it truly is. Your greatest source of transformation. Developing a relentless work ethic. There is something sacred, almost untouchable, about a man who shows up every single day. No excuses, no applause, no spectacle, just relentless, focused work. Not because the world demands it, not because anyone is watching, not because there's a reward waiting at the finish line, but because he has made a vow to himself. A vow to rise above mediocrity, to become more than average, to sculpt himself into a man of purpose. In a world addicted to comfort, hacks, and shortcuts, this kind of work ethic is rare, and rarity equals power. But here's the truth most people never realize. A relentless work ethic isn't measured in hours or sweat alone. It isn't about grinding until you collapse or burning yourself out to impress others. That's noise. That's performance. True work ethic is internal. It's quiet. It's immovable. It's the inner fire that compels you to move even when the world around you seems frozen, even when the voice inside whispers, "Rest, wait, later." The Stoics understood this instinctively. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He commanded armies. He faced betrayal, political chaos, and unending responsibility. Yet every morning he disciplined his mind. He reflected, he wrote. He prepared himself to meet the world, not through fleeting motivation, but through ritual and unwavering commitment. Motivation is fleeting. Discipline is immortal. A relentless work ethic is built in the invisible moments, when no one sees your effort, when results are slow or hidden, when it feels easier to quit, to postpone, to choose comfort over principle. This is where the work is truly done. This is where character is forged. It begins with a decision to show up regardless, to honor your own word, to move forward even when your energy is low, when inspiration is absent, when life is inconvenient. The relentless worker doesn't wait to feel like working. He works and the feeling comes after. Momentum is created by action, not by emotion. This is the critical distinction. Most people wait for the zone, for the perfect alignment of mood and energy. They wait for passion to descend like a lightning strike. And they wait. And they stay stuck. But the truth is, the zone is manufactured through repetition, through consistency, through stubborn devotion to your craft. Real confidence is born from this. It isn't the byproduct of positive thinking or affirmations. It comes from keeping your promises to yourself. From doing the hard things when no one notices, when the reward is invisible, when the world is indifferent. That is where self-respect grows. That is where your identity shifts, from someone who hopes to someone who executes. Execution doesn't require perfection. You will stumble. You will fail. You will make mistakes. But the relentless worker doesn't pursue flawless results. He pursues alignment, integrity, the quiet satisfaction of knowing at the end of the day that he moved closer to the man he intends to become, no matter how small the steps, no matter how invisible the progress. The power of relentless work is in compounding. One disciplined day builds another. Small victories stack into momentum. Repetition transforms effort into instinct. And over months and years, the man who consistently shows up becomes unstoppable, not because life made him lucky, but because he made himself unshakable. Yes, there will be voices, people who don't understand, who call obsession unhealthy, who say you need to relax, to enjoy life. Let them speak. Let them scroll. Let them chase comfort. While they waste time on distraction, you are building. Slowly, deliberately, invisibly. And 5 years from now, the difference won't just be visible. It will be undeniable. It will be the silent authority in your posture, the calm in your gaze, the unwavering confidence in every decision. People will sense it, respect it, even if they cannot explain it. But none of this matters if you don't choose it today. If you don't take full ownership of your time, your habits, your craft. No one else is coming to push you. No one else is tracking your discipline. This is a battle you fight in private. And that is precisely why it is powerful. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped waiting for motivation and just committed to working? No matter the mood, no matter the distraction, no matter the comfort. What could you become if you applied consistent pressure every day with purpose until it became second nature? Because the man who develops a relentless work ethic doesn't just reach his goals. He becomes the kind of man who cannot be stopped. A man whose inner fire no circumstances can extinguish. A man who builds, regardless of applause, distraction, or delay. This is mastery. This is quiet power. This is what separates the fleetingly ambitious from the unbreakable. The mindset of those who never quit. There is a quiet fire burning inside certain people. It's subtle, almost invisible to the casual observer. You won't always see it in their words. You won't always notice it in their posture. And you won't hear it in their voice. Yet it is there, steady, unwavering, persistent. It shows itself in the way they keep moving forward when everyone else walks away. In the way they continue long after motivation has faded, long after excuses have piled up, long after the world whispers, "You've done enough. Stop now." It shows itself in the refusal to quit, not because life is easy, not because fear doesn't exist, not because doubt doesn't creep in, but because they've made something crystal clear to themselves. This is non-negotiable. This is not optional. The mindset of those who never quit is not forged in hype. It is not built on an illusion of fearlessness. They feel fear. They feel doubt. They face uncertainty, loss, and exhaustion. Every day they experience the pull of giving up, and yet they keep moving forward. The difference lies in the way they interpret resistance. Where most people see walls, they see signals. Where most see struggle as a reason to stop, they see struggle as confirmation. This is exactly where they need to be. Every obstacle, every setback, every failure is not a barrier. It is a guidepost, a teacher, a forge for the mind and the character. Stoicism is the bedrock of this mindset. It teaches that life is never meant to be easy. Comfort is not the goal. Avoidance is not the standard. Growth, resilience, and mastery are. Seneca said it plainly. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. That is not just poetic wisdom. It is unflinching, brutal truth. The ones who never quit have embraced difficulty not reluctantly, but intentionally. They have made it a part of their identity. They no longer ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What now? How will I rise?" It all begins with one foundational decision: to stop expecting the path to be smooth. Anticipate struggle. Prepare for it. And when it arrives, as it inevitably will, lean in, breathe through it, accept it. Remind yourself, this is the price of growth, and it is worth paying. Most people quit because they expected it to be easier. The unstoppable ones never make that mistake. But grit alone is not enough. Discipline alone is not enough. What separates the unyielding from the merely persistent is clarity. The relentless know exactly what they are fighting for. They have a reason so compelling, so anchored in their vision, that it pulls them forward even when every fiber of their being whispers to stop. This reason is greater than comfort, greater than pride, greater than excuses. It could be freedom, redemption, honor, mastery, or the simple, unshakable desire to no longer be the person they once were. Whatever it is, it anchors them steady and immovable. When life grows heavy, they do not float. They root. They stop negotiating with fleeting emotions. They stop waiting for motivation to arrive. They rely on their standard, not on their feelings. They act not because the moment is perfect, but because action is necessary. That is the Stoic way, to step forward regardless, to meet life as it is, not as you wish it were. And here is the hard truth. Results will not always be immediate. Weeks may pass, months may pass, sometimes years. But the ones who never quit do not measure their progress solely in outcomes. They measure it in alignment, in the quiet, internal knowing that they are doing exactly what must be done, moment by moment, step by step, whether anyone notices or not. They build not for applause. They build for impact, quietly, relentlessly. They also know that quitting does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it wears the mask of compromise. Sometimes it disguises itself as distraction, perfectionism, or endless preparation. The relentless see through these illusions. They recognize the moment the mind tries to trick them and respond with action. They do not wait to feel ready. They simply begin. When they stumble, as they inevitably will, they do not stay down. They extract the lesson. They reset. They return with sharper resolve, not shame. Failure becomes another repetition, another brick, another teacher. They integrate it. They do not internalize it. They transform it. The mindset of those who never quit is rooted in one unshakable belief. I may not be the fastest. I may not be the strongest. I may not be the smartest, but I will be the last one standing. And every day, through effort, sacrifice, and silent decisions, they prove it to themselves, not to the world, not for recognition, but for themselves. So ask yourself, what is your threshold for quitting? Where do you usually stop? And more importantly, what version of yourself is waiting on the other side of that limit? Because the first time you cross it, something changes. You stop being the person who tries. You start becoming the person who finishes, again and again. No matter the fear, no matter the doubt, no matter the fatigue, no matter what, the world may not applaud you today. It may not recognize your effort, your consistency, your quiet sacrifices. But one day, when the dust settles and your work stands undeniable, the world will look at everything you've built and call it discipline. It will call it strength. It will call it success, but you will know the truth. It is not simply success. It is refusal. It is patience. It is grit. It is the quiet, relentless fire that whispered in your darkest moments. Keep going. Don't stop. This is yours to build. You do not rebuild yourself by accident. You do not wake up one morning fully formed into the person you've always admired from afar. That transformation is deliberate. It demands intention. It demands sacrifice. It demands long hours in silence. In solitude, wrestling with your own doubts, confronting every soft excuse that has kept you safe, and forging a version of yourself that the world has not yet seen, but that you recognize in your mind's eye every single day. That inner vision, that uncompromising standard is all the guidance you need. It is the compass that carries you when the storms rise, when the world questions you, when your old habits beg for comfort over courage. The old you served a purpose. He protected you once. He tolerated disrespect, made excuses, delayed dreams, and broke promises to himself out of fear. But he is no longer invited to the life you are building. He is finished. Not because you hate him, but because you have outgrown him. Because the next chapter demands evolution, not survival. This episode, here on Stoic Sage Academy, was never about shortcuts. It was never about motivation that fades with the sunrise. It was about something deeper. It was a reminder that true power resides in destruction, in dismantling what no longer serves you, in walking alone when the world expects comfort. Strength is born in the moments you refuse the familiar, the easy, the safe, and instead choose the path of deliberate growth. Transformation does not happen in crowds. It happens in the silence between the voices, in the decisions made in solitude, in the relentless act of shedding people, patterns, thoughts, comforts, and every soft excuse that has kept you stagnant. That is where the fire of real change is stoked. That is where the new identity is forged. Now you see it. Now you know what is possible when you burn the old self and begin again with ruthless clarity, not hesitation, not fear, not compromise. With the firm understanding that what you create from this moment forward will be stronger, cleaner, and more aligned than anything you have ever lived before. So the question is yours alone. Will you carry the weight of the man you used to be? Or will you bury him and rise into the person you were always capable of becoming? Either way, your future is watching, and it will not wait.